Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. Ever since I've been on YouTube, and I think I started in 2008, I have always recognized the value of the comment section for each of my videos. In fact, I always encourage folks to chime in with their thoughts, their experiences, their opinions in the comments section, because it's a great way to help educate people about the different processes and techniques that we use. Sometimes I'll do a video where I'm talking about a specific technique, and someone will comment with a different version or a different approach, a different idea, and that can help us to learn new and better ways to do things. I'm frequently surprised at some of the comments that people leave where they share a technique that I'd never even considered before. And there have been numerous occasions where I've completely changed my technique based on something that somebody commented about. Anyway, one of the disadvantages of the comment section is it's very similar to how all social media works. You have to have an account with YouTube, and very often you use an alias to describe who you are. And unfortunately, with an alias, I don't know anything about you. And that's probably a good thing from your perspective, but I don't know your gender, I don't know your age, I don't know any of your experiences with regards to building or playing guitars. I know nothing. I just know this little alias, which is, it's sort of a gender neutral, age neutral handle that doesn't really help me to understand who you are. Now, for me, the most important detail is your age. And the reason is I have found that there's the old saying, with age comes wisdom. And when I was young, in my teenage years, between the ages of about 15 and 18, I was in high school at the time, and my friends and I were all into muscle cars, Mustangs, Camaros, Firebirds, Novas, Chevelles, you name it. Any of those mid 60s to early 70s high performance American made cars, we were into those. And what we really liked to do was modify them to make them faster and more powerful. But we weren't old enough to really understand any of the technology in these cars. And we didn't really understand how parts work together to maximize performance. So we would end up buying parts based on what we read in car magazines without really doing enough research to understand how those parts work. And I can remember one time I was at a friend's house, and he had a 1970 Nova SS, and he had bought a set of Lakewood traction bars that he was going to install on the Nova. And I was looking at them, and I thought, wow, these are really cool. And they were, for us, it was fairly expensive. But I remember asking him, how do these things actually work? And he just shrugged his shoulders and says, I don't know, but they look cool. Well, okay, why would you spend the money on a high performance part if you don't know exactly how it works or what it's going to do for you? But you could see it on the, down under the rocker panel in front of the rear tires, sticking down there and attached to the suspension. And that looked cool. And everybody who would see that, who knows performance cars, would know that, hey, that guy's got a hot rod car, don't mess with that. Then I had another friend who had a 67 Chevelle, and he wanted to put a hotter cam in it. So he just bought, it was an Isky cam, high lift, and we installed it into the engine, which took a tremendous amount of effort and work to do that. But we got it installed in the engine, fired it up, and the car actually ran worse because we weren't smart enough to understand that when you replace the camshaft with a high performance camshaft, you have to consider every other part of that engine. The heads, the intake manifold, the carburetor, the exhaust, the compression of the pistons, everything factors into it. You can't just swap out a cam and think it's going to turn your car into a 10-second quarter-mile street machine. But we weren't smart enough to know any of this stuff. And it took many years before we would begin to learn, there's more to this than we thought. We have to do a lot more work. Well, I have found the same thing to be true with guitars. There are a lot of comments that people will leave on videos where it's apparent to me they don't fully understand how guitars work or how they're made, but they have these opinions that they think are, it's sort of like the my way or the highway thing. Their opinion is correct, everybody else's is wrong. A good example of that would be whenever I talk about tremolo bridges in a video and talk about specifically locking tremolos, there's always going to be a couple of people who are going to chime in and say, Floyd Rose tremolos are better than Collar, or Collar is better than Floyd Rose. And they're very firm in their opinion. They usually offer no evidence to back up their claims. So it's clear it's an opinion. It's not a fact. But a lot of them believe that it is a fact. And when I read those, I sometimes think, this is a teenager who doesn't have a lot of experience at building guitars and doing the setups and all that kind of work. But they've seen pictures of their Guitar Hero with a Floyd Rose, and they think that's the bridge I've got to have on all my guitars, without really understanding how the Floyd Rose works and the relationship between how the Floyd Rose works and how a Collar bridge works. They're similar, but they are different. And it's really an opinion thing. You can like a Floyd Rose just because you like the way the bridge functions. Or you can like a Collar bridge because you like the way it functions. Or maybe it's because it's easier to install. Whatever. The same thing is true with pickups. I've seen comments where people will say, single coil pickups suck. I like humbuckers, they're way better. But that's just an opinion because it's subjective. Some folks love the way a single coil sounds and hate the way a humbucker sounds, and vice versa. So it's not a fact, it's just an opinion, and it's a subjective opinion. But like I said, from my experience, a lot of younger people haven't been around long enough to understand this. So they develop opinions based on what they see their friends doing or what they've seen their guitar heroes doing, and not necessarily on actually trying a lot of different things and understanding that to get a certain tone for a certain effect, you have to play single coils or you have to play humbuckers, but you don't necessarily have to stick with one and never the other. Now there is a gray area here, and that is because I can't tell the age of people commenting, some of these folks that I think are teenagers are actually full-grown adults, and many of them are probably closer to my age and even older. So what's going on there? Well, I think that for a lot of people, when they formulate an opinion about a guitar and its design and how it works, or a 60s muscle car, they form it in their youth and it just sort of stays there in the back of their mind and they never let go of it. So as adults, they'll start to get more involved in the guitar and building guitars, or maybe they'll go out to their garage and start working on that Mustang that they just splurged some money on as a dream bucket list project. And they start to pull out those old opinions from their youth, and they really adhere to those. So when I do a video where I debunked certain thoughts like the effect of wood on the tone in a solid body electric guitar, or where sustain comes from, or humbuckers versus single coils, or a Fender style tremolo versus a Floyd Rose locking tremolo, people will bring up their opinions and their ideas that contradict a lot of what I say, because they've had that opinion sitting in the back of their mind since they were teenagers. And they haven't allowed themselves to understand that a lot of these ideas can be reshaped or expanded upon. And when you start to talk about things like the difference between a maple fretboard and a rosewood fretboard or an ebony fretboard, some folks are diehard, set in their opinion about which one they think is best. And oftentimes it has to do with tone and sustain, when in reality, tone and sustain has nothing to do with the fretboard. It really, for the fretboard, it's more about the way it looks and the way it feels. But people are so locked into these opinions that they formulated when they were young, and they haven't allowed those opinions to change as they got older and learned more things. And as you get older and you go through college and you start a career and do all these kind of things, you start to learn things about the way the world works that may not necessarily jive with what your opinions have been. And then as you start to open your eyes and accept different ideas, you start to see the world in a different way. And that's what wisdom is. And as we get older and we become wiser, we can start to see that, okay, you can play a maple or an ebony or a rosewood fretboard, and it's not really going to matter. You can choose whatever pickups depending on the song that you're going to play and the sound that you want to get for that sound to evoke a certain emotion. And ideally, you would have different guitars for different songs and different effects, tonal effects. But you need to kind of let go of some of those early childhood opinions that you had when you were younger, because I think a lot of folks, they'll be heavily involved in playing the guitar when they're young, but then the course of life, going to school, getting a career going, getting married, having kids, being a parent, raising your kids, continuing with your career, and then you start to get towards retirement, and all of a sudden you find you have some disposable income and the time to revisit that hobby you had when you were a kid. But you need to leave those opinions that you had as a kid behind. You have to open your mind, or go woke, as they would say, and accept that a lot of your opinions about the guitar are probably subjective, and you can expand on them. And that makes building and playing guitars that much more enjoyable. So I know this is kind of an unusual video. It's something that's been kind of swirling around in my mind the last couple of days because of some of the comments that I have read. And it's funny, I'll read a comment and I'll think, that's a teenager. But then I'll think, how do I know that for sure? That could be a 65-year-old retired guy who's just still clinging to those teenage beliefs. That's one of the problems with social media. And I don't see any way around that unless we were to be required to put more details about who we are in our profiles, so that when I click on a profile, I can see, oh, this is a 65-year-old guy from Brisbane, Australia, or a 32-year-old woman from Chicago. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. But you can always do that on your own. You can go into all your profiles and just put a little bit more detail so that when people look at it, they understand this isn't a bot, or this isn't somebody, somebody who's trying to present themselves as something they aren't. But at any rate, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope I've earned your subscription. And until the next video, be sure to click the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video. That always helps this channel. Also, because I don't have a Patreon page or offer memberships, instead what I like to do is sell guitar plans, t-shirts, coffee mugs, things like that on my eGuitar Plans website, as well as my Highline Guitars merch store. And there's links in the description below. And any purchase you make is going to help support this channel. But best of all, not only are you supporting the channel, you're getting something in return. So, and if you want to keep it simple, you can just click the thanks button and leave a tip in the amount that you think is fair. And of course, if you have a question that you really want me to answer, you can always leave a tip and include a question with it, and I promise you I'll answer that question. So until the next episode, as always, take care, stay safe, and I hope you'll be back for more future guitar building videos.